coming to the Board of Commissioners, today being September 19th, 2023. We are going to start our meeting with an invocation by Mary Robinson from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a member of our Interfaith Council. Except for we don't see Mary. We don't see Mary here, so we're going to call on an old friend of mine named Gary Webster. If Gary from Senator Lee's office would love to come and give us an invocation. Gary, would that be all right?
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this beautiful day, the sunshine of southern Utah, here in the land of Dixie. We're so grateful for the opportunity that we have as Americans to come together and participate in our freedoms at this county commission meeting. We would ask a blessing on the members of our commission and those that assist them in this great county. Bless them in all that they do, and bless them throughout this meeting, and those who are in attendance, that we as citizens and Americans will be diligent in overseeing the issues and some of the challenges that may be a part of this wonderful place. We're so grateful for this beautiful building that's been dedicated recently. We're grateful for the opportunity to meet here. We would ask thy blessings be with each of us this day and this week, and these things we pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Gary, for filling in. We will now have a Pledge of Allegiance led by Keno Freeman of the Marine Corps of Vietnam and a veteran.
Follow me to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your service.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We're going to start our meeting with the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a means of expediting the consideration of routine matters. If a commissioner requests that items be removed from the consent agenda, those items are placed at the beginning of the regular agenda. Other than requests to remove items, a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda is not debatable.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the consent agenda consisting of the following items. A, consideration of auditor-approved claims for payments for September 6th, 2023 through September 19th, 2023. B, consideration of regular commission meeting minutes of September 5th, 2023. C, consideration of administrative adjustments, real property. D, consideration of administrative adjustments, personal property. E, consideration of applications for property tax abatement. F, consideration of temporary public defender agreement. And G, consideration of appellate public defender agreement. And that is my motion.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes. The first item on the regular agenda is a presentation regarding Constitution Week from the Daughters of the American Revolution. Welcome, ladies.
When our Constitution was signed in Philadelphia Assembly Room at the Pennsylvania State House, which is now known as Independence Hall, at 2 p.m. on the afternoon of September 17th, 1787. Our Constitution was signed by 39 of 55 delegates at the Constitutional Convention. Some refused because at that point there was no Bill of Rights. Patriots living under tyranny fought and died for the freedoms our Constitution guarantees every American. It is important this document remain relevant. In 1955, the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution petitioned Congress with a resolution to set aside September 17th to the 23rd to be dedicated to the observance of Constitution Week. The annual celebration was established when signed into law by President Dwight D. Eisenhower on August 2nd, 1956. The NSDAR is committed to encouraging study and educating the public about the Constitution and the men who framed it. The Constitution cannot be forgotten. On September 15th, in this very room, we, in the Washington County building, the DAR, schools, organizations, and I believe some people here participated in the opportunity to read our Constitution live. This was live streamed to schoolrooms throughout Washington County. A copy of the video will be given to the National Bill of Rights Foundation in Virginia at their request, which will be broadcast nationally at some point. Thank you, each one of you, Commissioner Snow and all of the Board of Commissioners, for issuing what I hope will be issued, the proclamation recognizing the importance of September 17th, some 236 years later. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I just want to comment on the reading. It really was a great event, and
It
it was
was.
great to see those young students come in, take their turn reading the Constitution. Of course, you read it several times. And what I also liked is quite a few people seen it. I wasn't sure, it was a Friday afternoon. It was kind of like one of those days where you knew a lot of people were probably leaving early. But I got quite a bit of feedback. They talked about, seeing it in their classroom, watching it. And so I thought it was just a really good event, and I hope it's a tradition.
Well, we really appreciated your participation, and it will also be eventually on YouTube, or may already be posted on YouTube. So you missed it, you can see it, but isn't that great that I think our community really supports this sort of thing, so.
Well, it was, for anybody who didn't get to see it, this room was packed. I don't know where we got the other chairs from, but I mean, it was a very full room from kids and we had veterans and we had teachers, and the three of us each got to read as well, and other community leaders, but mainly it was kids, right? High school and junior high students. And you can tell they had prepared. Like, this wasn't like, I don't know, what am I showing up for? Some of them had, some small costumes, right? But they had prepared this. If nothing else, if we can educate even a few on the value of the Constitution and what it actually means, what the words say. I got to speak with them on my section when I read. I got to speak afterwards and talk about how we have the preamble of the Utah Constitution. The U.S. Constitution is a little misquoted in the news, but those are just the preambles. We don't follow the preamble alone, right? We follow the governing document. But every decision that actually affects their lives is important to understand the Constitution. And most people, I told them that they were smarter than most adults right now because most people haven't read it, unfortunately. It took about 45 minutes to read. People should take the time to read, study it, understand what it is that actually governs us and grants our rights and liberties against the government.
And as I understand it, this is the first county in the country that's done this
Yes.
sort of thing. So pretty outstanding, guys, is all
And
I'm
we've
saying.
committed to do this every year.
Well,
This is
just
what we're hoping.
thanks to the Daughters of the American Revolution and also
Thank
the
you.
Sons of the American Revolution were there. United We Pledge
Mm-hmm.
was involved in putting it on, and just a great thing. We did it on the 15th because, of course, Sunday was
It's the 17th.
Was the 17th. So next year will be on a Monday probably, which
Right.
would be a little better for school.
Exactly.
Getting into the classroom. But anyway, great job.
I
Just a
had
wonderful
the-
event.
Thank you so much.
I had the elementary kids,
You did?
and that was in the morning, and it was chaos until like 2 minutes before. And
Okay.
then they were just all lined up in their order, et cetera. Well, one of the young men that was reading said Senate instead of Senate. And so the next person who also had
Said
that
Senate.
word in theirs asked the lady that was helping, Shannon over here, saying, I've always thought it was Senate. Now I was sitting right there so I could hear this conversation. And he said, this other person says, I always thought it was Senate, but I just heard Senate. And Shannon goes, it's Senate. And so they got up there, and right at the moment that word popped up, there was a little pause to remember the right way to say it.
Right, cute.
But it came off flawlessly, and they were all very impressive. I don't know how the youngest one
Right.
might have been, but they all
Pretty
nailed
young.
it and practiced,
Oh, they were
and
really good.
big words that came out perfectly, and
I think a lot of the adults also kind of
Yeah.
struggled with it. I mean, it isn't the way we speak, right? So
Yeah.
Well, part of mine was the Senate shall choose. The choose is C-H-U-S-E.
I've
in the
noticed that
Constitution,
too.
Not the way we spell it.
Yeah.
I noticed that.
So I might have felt like that as one student just briefly. Oh, it said choose.
Yeah.
I spelled this wrong my entire life.
That's great.
Just from United We Pledge, they did send a statement just to say, kind of summarizing that we were able to conduct 4 different readings involving over 200 individuals. 75% of them were students from Washington County. It was live streamed to the website, as you mentioned, and was recorded so schools can use it to study the Constitution in their classrooms. Washington County has truly made its mark as America's county by doing this first ever countywide read. So we're, like I said, we're honored to be able to participate and use our platform to help educate people on the Constitution. We will do that anytime, any place that we ever can.
We're so grateful for you commissioners that have been so supportive of this. Makes such a difference.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Item number 2 is consideration of proclamation number 2023-31, a proclamation declaring the week of September 17th as Constitution Week. Commissioner Almquist.
Well, as we've all said, this has been a week of celebration, and we might as well continue it. And this resolution, I'm happy to read it, Chair, if you'd like.
Please.
Whereas September 17th, 2023 marks the 236th anniversary of the signing of the Constitution of the United States of America at the Constitutional Convention, whereas it is fitting and proper to officially recognize this magnificent document on this anniversary and to call for patriotic celebrations that will commemorate the occasion. Whereas Public Law 915, 70 Statute 932, August 2nd, 1956, authorizes the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week. Whereas during this Constitution Week, as citizens of the United States of America, we reaffirm the ideals embraced in 1787 by the framers of the Constitution, which include the protection of the freedoms guaranteed to us. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the County Commissioners of Washington County, Utah, that the week of September 17th through 23rd, 2023 shall be known, honored, and referred to as Constitution Week.
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Awesome.
Item number 3 is the Emergency Services Report by the Washington County Sheriff's Office. Sergeant Cashin, who leads our search and rescue team.
Afternoon, Commissioners. If I act a little punchy, it's because this SAR report is wrong. I did it last night, got it done at 6 and got called out at 9 and got home at 2. So, but I'm not gonna count that one. So in the last month, we had 10 more search and rescues. That gives us 116 for the year, not counting the one late last night. 364 man hours. We had 9 in-county residents that were rescued, 2 out-of-county Utah residents, and 10 out of state. A lot of these came in one rescue. I'll get to that one. So on the 21st, we had an injured hiker on Red Mountain. Young man fell approximately 10 feet, said he had injured his leg. The interesting thing about that one is it was thunder, lightning, pouring rain. So as soon as I pulled up, lightning hit the Red Mountain, about shook my truck. We had some discussion on whether we should even send people. And talking to my SAR people, they're like, no, somebody's hurt, we gotta go. So I just kept them to a minimum. They went up with Ivan's EMS and they did get that young man down. And he did get transported, but he's gonna be fine. 24th, we had an ATV accident on Sand Mountain. That ATV ended up on top of that gentleman. Once they got to him, they decided it was best to life flight him due to the potential injuries he had. On the 30th, we had a lost hiker up on Red Mountain, the trailhead that comes from Dameron. They found her pretty quickly, 44-year-old female, and got her out. Canaan Mountain. I love that mountain, but every time we go, we know it's 5 to 8 hours. It's a long search. Had some stranded hikers. It was actually called in by somebody else that found them. Due to some flooding, they could not get back out. And so at that point, we sent out SAR, but we also contacted DPS with Star 7 to see if they could come help us. So basically, it was a group of 8 hikers, 6 dogs, and all of their camping supplies that were hauled out of there. That's where a lot of those numbers came from. We didn't count the dogs, I want you to But they were all fine. Had a stranded motorist on the 2nd up on Smith Mesa. So when they got done with, when they were working on the Canaan one, somebody got stuck, so they sent a couple guys up there to take care of getting that person out, those 2 people out. And I don't worry too much about their vehicles, but we didn't want to leave them. Lost hiker Oak Grove on 9/4. That gentleman went up that Oak Grove Trail to the top of Pine Valley, but he didn't make it. He got off trail, got ledged out. We spent about 3 or 4 hours trying to get to him, realized where he was at was going to take a lot longer. We called in Star 7 for that one too. Interesting thing about that, the rescuer on Star 7 went down, got to this gentleman, looked at him and says, "Hey coach, how you doing?" It was his coach from Northern Utah when he was in high school. It's amazing where you run into people you know out here. So then we had a missing person in St. George. They requested we come and help look for him. The person had some special needs. We searched for a while and they called it off and located him just a little bit after that. On the 9th, injured hiker on Forsyth Trail. That one took a little while. Sent teams in, and we ended up calling Star 7 to hoist that person out. While they were in the middle of that, another gentleman in a separate group got sick, so they escorted him down, and then his daughters kept going, and they got lost and ran out of water. So it was one of those things, we just kind of spent the day on the mountain. It was very nice. Got them all out. Injured hiker at 3 Falls, fairly easy. Person just had an ankle injury. They carried them out, and then stranded hikers in Red Cliff on the 13th. 2 young men just went in there and didn't have any light and waited too long, got up on a ledge, and they just sat and waited for us. So we did our SAR conference this last weekend, Friday and Saturday. I had about 200 people from all over the state, including Mojave County, Arizona, and Clark County, Nevada, that came up. National Guard came down. We had about 4 helicopters running, doing different scenarios. So it was a lot of fun. The main purpose of these conferences is not only to teach, but to work with each other. So if we have a large incident and we call for help, or they call us, it's not the first time we've worked with them. So it was pretty successful as far as I could see. Nobody complained yet, so that was it.
I enjoyed seeing some of the comments on social media about the training, and people saying, "What on earth is going on out here?" We've got a lot of, am I in danger? And the word had spread pretty quickly. Like, no, it's a training, you're fine. But
Yeah, the National Guard's already contacted me. They want to bring their whole unit next time.
cool.
And that was,
How much fun for you?
it'll be good. It'll be good. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very
We
much.
appreciate you.
Always please express our appreciation from the community to your guys. Item number 4 is consideration of Resolution R 2023-3174, a resolution approving the Council of Governments recommendations. Todd?
Commissioners, this is for last month's meeting, not the one we held today. There were 3 items that were presented for the COG, and they were approved unanimously with their recommendation. Now we're looking for ratification from the County Commission. First one was for Hurricane City for $80,000 from the Preservation Fund for 300 West Street. Second one was for Washington County for $40,000 from the Construction Grant Fund for strip of property along SR 18 from Vale to Central. And the third one was deobligation of $675,000 from the Construction Grant Fund for Washington Parkway. Any questions?
And this was from our last COG meeting.
Yeah, it was from last
Very
month.
good.
We're a little late getting it to you this time.
Well, no problem. It's just that we had a COG meeting today.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
so we'll be coming back with that one in a couple of weeks.
yeah, very good. Well, with that, Mr. Chairman, Todd, thank you for going over these 3 recommendations that were recommended back to us. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt Resolution R-2023-3174, a resolution approving the Council of Governments recommendations and these 3 expenditures that have been explained.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 5 is consideration of our 2023-3175, a resolution approving the execution of a participating agreement with the USDA, the Forest Service, and Dixie National Forest in 4 counties, Washington, Iron Cane, and Garfield, regarding invasive species of plants. Ron Whitehead, our Public Works Director.
How are you?
We're well.
This is a multi-jurisdictional grant application that received some funding. Kane County, Iron County, Washington County, and Garfield County, all working together with the Forest Service and with USDA to stop the spread of invasive weeds and try and get a handle on those wherever they can. They work as a unit, one unit, bigger areas, and cover a lot more ground with them. So we've agreed to be a part of that.
Is there certain project areas that,
The first project areas they're working on is in Garfield County. I guess they've got real need up there for some help to come in and try and get around some big areas and get them slowed down, so. And then they'll decide where they go after that.
People may not understand that invasive weeds are a problem. They affect agriculture, they get into crops, they affect our food supply, and if you let it go too far, it's really difficult to even try and get ahead of it anymore. Or to ever try and regain what you've lost. And so we do, it's one of the things the county does in conjunction with BLM and Forest Service and other land managers that the USDA or NRCS and others that try and get ahead of destroying our crops and agricultural and on private land as well, so.
and there's a certain list of weeds that are invasive. Obviously, we'd like to add tumbleweed to there, but nobody's put that on the list yet, but there's thistles and others that are,
Thistles, Oriole whitecrest, there's a bunch of them.
A
Even
bunch of 'em.
some newer ones this year that haven't been very active, but with all the moisture, they've sprung back up big time, and so we're trying to beat some of that down. And we've had, double rainy seasons, so what normally comes out in spring, they've been fighting for several months now. With these last rains we've had, some of them are sprouting up again, so.
yeah, in the last few years, during the drought, I was so proud of myself for keeping up on weeds, but this year it's been a little more
Little tough.
problematic.
Roundup is not cheap.
No, it is not cheap.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve resolution number R 2023-3175, a resolution approving the execution of a participating agreement with the USDA, Forest Service, Dixie National Forest, and 4 counties, Washington, Iron Cane, and Garfield, for the invasive species of plants grant.
And I'll second that motion, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Item number 6 is consideration of resolution R 2023-3176, a resolution approving the execution of an addition to the cooperation agreement with the USDA, the Forest Service, and Dixie National Forest for the construction and maintenance of certain forest roads. Ron again.
This is a subcontract of the master road agreement we signed 2 weeks ago with them. This comes with a specific amount of money and specific work they want done on 4 roads around Pine Valley. And these roads are designated areas that they want kept clean and in good repair so they can get in and fight fires if any more fires come in the area. Protects the watershed and the forest itself on the mountain. So they've got some money from the federal government and put a big significant chunk to take care of these roads down here.
Oh, very good. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt resolution R-2023-3176, a resolution approving the execution of an addition to the cooperation agreement with the USDA, the Forest Service, and the Dixie National Forest for the construction and maintenance of certain forest roads.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Ron.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Item number 7 is consideration of resolution number R 2023-3177, a resolution accepting a grant agreement regarding the Spring Hollow Mountain Biking Trails. Brittany McMichael.
Pretend for a minute that I'm Leslie Fonger, and I know everything there is to know about the RTP grants. Leslie was going to be here today, but she got stuck in a meeting. So this is for phase 1 and phase 2 of the mountain bike, 55 miles of mountain bike trail. The Spring Hollow is the east of Diamond Valley in the Cedar Bench area, and Grass Valley is directly north of Pine Valley. So I'm going to read to you exactly what Leslie texted me here just a minute ago. This is the second grant agreement for the Spring Hollow Mountain Bike Trails. The monies within this agreement are awarded from a federal fund and require a separate contract from the state awarded funds you previously approved. This is still for phase 2 of the project to include 15 miles of additional trail, as well as trailhead and event areas. So this is just a separate, the federal portion of this grant versus the state portion that we've already been through.
Got it.
Well, and the truth is, well, we've had lots of partners on this, and between Trails USA, Trails Utah, Feds, State,
House, yes.
there's a lot that have come together to make this possible. And if anyone's seen the area, they know that this is a trail network that will be world famous and yet not destructive to the landscape the way they are constructing it, and how it weaves through there. It'll be challenging, which a lot of the professional riders like, but there's certain segments of it that locals, even kids, could ride on then and enjoy that spirit of the sport of mountain biking, which, by the way, is huge in Utah. It's,
We've seen the video of some of the trail already, and it's amazing trail.
great views, and
Yeah.
the way it winds around in there, it's a real asset to our area. So with that, I move that we approve resolution R 2023-3177, a resolution accepting a grant agreement regarding the Spring Hollow Mountain Biking Trails.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 8 is a public hearing regarding Washington County Tourism Advisory Board's recommendation to assist in funding the Zion Canyon Music Festival. Jamie, we'll invite you up, and then we'll open that public hearing after Jamie tells us what this is about.
Okay. The Zion Canyon Music Festival brings around 1,600 participants and approximately $282,000 in economic impact to Washington County. The festival provides 2 days of music, art, and food, and brings in musicians and visitors from all over the world. The event has grown approximately 10% year over year and is well supported by the town of Springdale and locals. The funding recommendation from the Tourism Tax Advisory Board is $5,000 in transient room tax funds.
And it's my understanding, so this has gone through the Tourism Tax Advisory Board, which is a board made up of people that are involved in the hospitality industry and who
Correct.
actually pay this tax. And there's actually other proposals that went through, but if they go to a nonprofit, they don't necessarily have to come for a public hearing.
Correct.
And it's also, it's my understanding that this $5,000 is for advertising to
Yes.
bring people from outside the area in. And so it's not necessarily just a check
No.
for the event. It's advertising dollars that are earmarked under statute to only be used for advertising.
Correct.
But in this way, they can both advertise for our area as well as a great event in Zion Canyon. Is that correct?
Exactly.
So,
Okay. Any other questions for Brittany? Or sorry, for Jamie? Okay, with that, we'll open the public hearing. Anybody have a comment they'd like to make on this? Erica, come on down.
Hi, nice to see you. Thank you for having the public hearing. My advertising for my company, I don't think the county should foot the bill for that. I don't think you should foot the bill for advertising for some private company. Let's go back to the proper role of government, please. I know it's under statute. That doesn't mean it's moral or right, but let's go back to basics and just take care of what our essentials are. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have a comment?
Afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Rick Wixom. I'm the Town Manager of Springdale. It's good to see you. Good to be with you today. I do want to request your support of this and add our, from the town, our support of this, or this recommendation from the Tourism Tax Advisory Board. As you know, and as mentioned, TRT is governed by statute. The first purpose of the transit room tax is promotion and enhancement of tourism. There's some other things, recreation and conventions and that, but the first thing is promotion of tourism. And to that end, the county spends many, many, many dollars advertising the county and promoting the county. This is a small request. We do appreciate the help. I'm sure the festival appreciates the help. This is something that used to be, we used to have be a bigger partner in this festival years ago. Right now, we are a sponsor of the festival, the town of Springdale is. It is something that generates economic activity within the town, within the county. It's something, as it's been going on, growing year after year, people are planning on it. They come, they bring their families, they enjoy the activity. So, from the town's behalf, or on the town's behalf, we appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Zachary Ray, spelled R-A-Y, resident here in Washington County. I was just curious, how much does the county invest in towards these type of events? TRT tax, am I understanding that correctly?
Transient room tax.
Transient room tax. On average, over the past couple of years, how much do you generally spend investing into events like this?
Well, a lot of the dollars that go into events like this come out of the advertising portion of TRT. And so that needs to be around 43% that's mandated by state statute. And the overall amount of TRT has varied, but it's right around $13 million. And so 43% of that. But there's also staff and our, for example, downstairs, in the visitor center, that's paid out of that portion as well. So that's not all advertising dollars,
Okay.
but that 43%. But that's where this funding comes from.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Dan, it's good to see you.
Hey, it's good to be seen and not viewed.
Yes, that is true.
Standard answer. It's good to see you guys. Thank you for having this as a public hearing. I've had the privilege a number of times to actually read the Constitution and study it, how we have it, and even have a YouTube channel on it. But here's the deal. When I've read the Constitution and studied it, it did something a little different that had been historically, and that is it introduced what is known as free enterprise capitalism. And I define capital at this time as a means of production. So if you can produce anything, goods or services or whatever, that's means of production, that's capital, and it's free enterprise capitalism. Now, when the government gets involved and uses my money, taken from me at the point of a gun, then it has a different flavor. It's government-assisted capitalism. Now, it has many names. You can call it fascism, Nazism, socialism, or communism, and I really don't care what monikers you hang on it. I'm contrary there, too, as you know. I will like to share with you from the People's Weekly World. I used to subscribe. The People's Weekly World is the communist paper. And this is from 1998. The Communist Youth and Student Bill of Rights. Number 7, the right to recreation, arts, cultural, sports activities. The city, state, federal government can build and rebuild community, state, national parks and forests. Youth centers, parks for every community with access to pools, fields, other sports, recreational activities, regular community, citywide concerts. I'm not going to say anything about Tuacahn, $500,000. Dances, theater, to put young musicians, writers, actors, other artists to work, provide affordable cultural enjoyment for our communities. I love the parks. I go there often. And I enjoy Tuacahn. However, it's not the government's job to do that for us. Now, the problem you guys have is that you have 120 years of false traditions which choking you and interlaced and interlocked and homogenized every part of our life. just one example. It's of that problem, but it's not of advertisement. I owned a 4,000 square foot house on 2¼ acres in Louisiana on a killer fishing lake. And my property taxes were 0. I actually owned it. I could give it to my children. I come out here to Utah, I don't know the thing. But that's the way it is everywhere. So overcoming this is not for the faint of heart. You got to be serious. And I'm glad this is a Constitution Month, as the woman stood up and talked about. And it's going to be incremental, and you're not going to change everything overnight. It's taken us 100 years to get here. You're not going to change it in 4 years. However, that doesn't mean we acquiesce, send up a white flag, and just go along with tyranny. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Any other comments?
First, a question. Does TRT come from motels, hotels, and restaurants? A little bit of both? No restaurants?
No, it's just transient rooms, so it's only
Just-
hotels and
that's it,
motels.
okay.
Airbnbs, things like that.
Okay.
Just tourists from out of the area.
Okay. Well, first of all, I love this festival. I've been to it. I go to Springdale for concerts all the time. And I'm happy to pay my way. And with Erica, I agree that even though this is money set aside for these purposes and that it's statutory, that I disagree with it. And I would much rather that we reduce our TRT tax. I don't know about you, but I have a lot of family and friends come in to visit me all the time. Sometimes we run out of rooms in my house and I put them up in a hotel. And I'd rather have our TRT taxes go down because I'm paying for, believe it or not, I mean, it's not, I'm sure there's lots of us who, even though we live here in Washington County, we're buying hotel rooms here in Washington County frequently. And so this is a tax that we're paying too. And as someone just handed me this, the TRT annual totals for Washington County. The 4 years prior to COVID, you know, it used to be down around $4 million a year. But the 4 years prior to COVID, it had doubled to about $8 million a year. And then the years since COVID, the TRT annual totals for Washington County are at over 15 million, so it's almost doubled. You know, you guys have all been to Zion's like I and tried to enjoy a day in Zion's, try to go enjoy Angel's Landing or any number of hikes that you can no longer enjoy without a reservation and lots of crowds. I think advertising has done its job. Everyone knows that Zion's is awesome, and how about we just reduce our TRT tax instead? I don't think this is a proper role of government. I encourage you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing and move to item number 9. Consideration of Resolution R 2023-3178, a resolution approving TRT event funding for the 2024 Zion Music Festival.
I just wanted
What we
to,
just talked about.
just a couple items. I remember not very long ago, this used to be, I think it was a jazz festival, I'm not sure, a music festival. And Springdale was very involved in it. I know that the original request was quite a bit more than this. So this event is becoming more and more self-sufficient. It went under new management about that same time. And so, yeah, the amount, I think originally, between the town and the county, it was, the subsidy or whatever you want to call it was substantially more. So I do think that it's a well-managed event. I think it used to be around 20,000 that they needed the first year that I remember it. But anyway, and to just some of the points, tourism is obviously a substantial driver in the county. I will caution that there is a county, Grand County, Moab. It's quite a, I guess it's a desirable place. I don't find it as desirable as here by any stretch, but some people found it desirable, moved in, and then they've recently quit any sort of advertising, and hotel occupancy is often below 60%. The business owners out there are literally drying up. And so there is a downside to not staying sharp, not staying on your game. As we often say in this meeting, you know, we don't necessarily make the laws of the state of Utah. We do believe in a federal system. As the U.S. Constitution points out, state legislature is the state governing lawmaking body, and the laws that they make are the laws, you know, we're a political subdivision of them. And so when it comes to this TRT and some of the discussion we've had, while all of these points are you know, intelligent, well thought out points, they still conflict with maybe the law and the mission that we've been given as county commissioners, not only to how this tax is to be administered. I will say that the way the transient room tax came about was that people in the hospitality industry wanted this tax in order to promote business, because the very people that are paying the tax, the hoteliers, or they're passing it on to their customers, but they know what's going on in Grand County. If we don't stay sharp and don't continue to follow through, then basically we'll put them out of business in one way. So they have to have a certain occupancy to stay in business. And those are just a couple points that I'd make up, just bring up as in response, I guess, or just part of the discussion we've had.
I'll piggyback off of that, and those are good comments. Thank you for making them. Echo those things regarding state law. Our hands are tied on what we can and cannot spend on. And could we take in less? Sure, I guess we could take in less transient room tax money, but then that doesn't change the ratio of what we have to still spend. The state law is very clear on that, and it's quite restrictive. The difference, I have some reservation as far as the not-for-profit or for-profit, but in all honesty, we spend a lot of that money, again, under state law that we're mandated to spend under transient room tax. One, it benefits many of our citizens. Things that under the destination development side that we're allowed to spend, that our citizens use, our residents use all the time. Pickleball courts and soccer fields and things that are occasionally used for out-of-town tournaments, but the other 364 days a year are used by our residents that somebody had to pay for. Those things don't just spring up out of the ground, and so transient room tax has been a source of a lot of those amenities and facilities that benefit Washington County. When we talk about going to parks, you know, nobody, it is true, the federal government should not be involved. Nothing in the Constitution talks about local parks, because the federal government should not be involved in local parks. But the 10th Amendment reserves those things to the states, and cities and counties are political subdivisions of the state. And so that's where the power lies in those. That's where the people should be able to have those things. But there's no such thing as a private park outside of, you know, Disneyland is a private park, a very expensive place to go to recreate for the day at $125 when you can get a reservation per person per day. And so I think some of the things that we use to benefit, but just to the point of the for-profit or not-for-profit. First of all, there's a lot of not-for-profits that make insane, unholy amounts of money. Just because the ownership structure is different doesn't mean that it is not a profitable company as opposed to a for-profit. But there's a lot of 501c3s and C4s that make a lot of money. But if we were to not advertise and not do the things, we're trying to diversify our economy away from just Zion National Park, which is the largest economic driver in Washington County by far. And every single person that lives in Washington County is somehow tied to Zion National Park. Our economy is related to that. 27% of St. George's municipal budget comes from tourists, which are by and large coming here because of Zion National Park. So the businesses, the sales tax at St. George and the other cities are very close to that. That's not transient room tax. That's the sales tax from people that are shopping in stores, that are going out to eat, and they're doing all of the things that we all do on a daily basis. But that a third of that almost is coming from tourists outside of our area. And so when we advertise, and we're trying not to just make it about Zion, and events like this is some way to help diversify further so that we're not just reliant on Zion as an economic driver here. This is a way to help spread that impact around. And if it benefits a private company, everything that we do to advertise Washington County benefits a private company. Every hotel, every restaurant, every e-bike rental, every outfitter and guide, and all of those things are beneficiaries of us advertising something through transit room tax dollars. So private companies are receiving that benefit all the time. In this case, it's a $5,000 marketing spend for a company that's private. That doesn't mean that they're the first ones to ever be the recipient of the beneficiary or the beneficiary of transit room tax dollar spending for advertising. That's happened for a long time, and is what helps drive the economy here in Washington County.
And if we want to put a number to that, we've had several studies that have said that each taxpayer benefits $1,200 to $1,300 because of the impact of tourism dollars that are put into our economy. Take that away and our taxes would increase for various services that we use or things that we benefit from every year that we would otherwise be paying for. You know, the words free enterprise are not found in the Constitution anywhere. Oh yeah, you might be able to find enterprise here and free there, but they're never combined. They are left, as was stated, to the states to determine how their enterprise is going to operate. And in our state, our legislature has said that there's a certain need for services that would only benefit tourists for the most part, and therefore they pass this. I know everybody in my neighborhood and pretty much what they do for work. About 15% of them are directly tied to the tourism industry. One has a rafting adventure, another works for companies that do outfitting. You know, the list goes on. And I look at them and saying, if we ended this tomorrow and no tourists came here and we kind of did what Moab is doing and saying, don't come here anymore and we won't advertise and we won't support you if you do come here, those people would be moving. But they're my neighbors, and I like the industry that they're involved in, and it's partially tied to tourism in one way or another, let alone the fact that you take away every restaurant that would not come here if we didn't meet certain population thresholds or other things that they rely upon heavily. The owners of Rib and Chop House say that 55% of their entire income comes from tourists. So put that restaurant to bed, don't have that one here. The hotels that are being built, the people that work in them, the ones that clean rooms, the ones that sell them furniture or what have you, all of those hotels are mostly satisfying people that are coming here from outside of the area. And you also put those people out unemployed, or you leave those buildings vacant, or you turn it into the Roosevelt Hotel in New York. Anyway, my point being is that we can't look at this as one streamlined little event. We have to look at the big picture, and I promise you, I've read everything that Dan has sent me. I've read everything that Wendy has sent me, Shelley, everybody, and I've researched it beyond this point and given fair shake to every word that you say, and anything I say is not going to change your position. I already know that. But the point is that it's our obligation to be fair to the public as well as to you about the facts behind the scene that you either, one or two, don't refuse to believe, or two, that you simply stand by your principles, which I fully respect. But at the same time, we have to look out for the majority of those that we represent. And quite frankly, a lot of those people would be unemployed if we took all of this TRT and just threw it out the window.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make one more point. Early on, when I became a county commissioner, I can remember voting on an invoice, or there was an invoice that came through for Canadian Golf. And you might find that surprising that we'd be buying a full-page ad in Canadian Golf. We actually have a lot of Canadians that do come down here during their very long winter in golf. And so it was an appropriate ad, but I think what you've seen, and Wendy alluded to the fact that we have seen growth in TRT, but what the commission made a decision a few years ago that we wanted these tourism dollars to have a double investment. And one investment was that we wanted the citizens to benefit as much as possible. And so that's when we've actually partnered with our cities more on trails, more on some of these facilities that all of us can use. And this event is kind of like that. These are advertising dollars, but with it and with good management, because this event really is, I believe, under better management than maybe it was, is that now we do have a great music festival that our citizens can go to as well. So anyway, I'd just like to point out that there has been a shift. We do try to to make sure that our citizens receive some benefit for some of the inconveniences that tourism brings, as sometimes it can be a little bit annoying for people that go to restaurants. I go to Maverick, and so I'm just used to standing in line, and now that they have the self-checkout, my fine dining has really taken on a new experience. But I know that other people here go to restaurants on a busy weekend and sometimes, have to wait in line. And we apologize. Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve resolution number R 2023-3178, a resolution approving TRT event funding for the 2024 Zion Music Festival as has been designated.
And I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. With that, that was our last item of the regular agenda. I do want to address one thing. The state legislature is holding their interim session down here this week. We're hosting them, and so we've got some other meetings that we need to get to go advocate honestly for things that are important to Washington County. It's very rare that we get the entire state legislature that we get to go speak to real quick in one spot. Usually it's one or two of them at a time, and there's 104, so it takes a while. So this is we had to cancel the public comment for tonight so that we can get over some other meetings with them right now. But we did want to address, we've heard a lot of feedback regarding public comment and on ways that we can make it better, and so we'd like to try something new. Part of the really frustrating thing is that items have to be noticed up in 24 hours or more in advance. There's an agenda. We discuss those things so that the public knows what we're going to discuss, and so in a lot of public comment, we would like to respond. We'd like to have some dialogue. We'd like to be able to talk back, but we can't, right? Because this is your public comment time, and we haven't noticed up what you're going to. We can't make decisions right then. But honestly, the three of us would like to make headway. We'd like to solve problems. We have never once ever claimed to have all the good ideas. We look to solutions from our citizens as well. I can tell you that there is no solution that's going to come out of Washington, D.C. that is going to generally be better for Washington County than local solutions. We rely on the citizens. We hope that we can have a good, productive dialogue. Does not mean we are always going to agree. I love my wife more than anybody else on this planet, and she and I do not agree on every single item. And so we would like to respectfully disagree sometimes, but continue to work through things, advocate different sides. I think that is how, we're celebrating the 236th anniversary of the signing of the Constitution. It took months, right? Daughters of the American Revolution. They debated for months. And on the final vote, they weren't sure it was going to pass, right, when the Constitution passed, because they were still so far apart on the Connecticut Compromise, the balancing between state and federal rights. And so healthy debate is a good thing. We don't think we get a whole lot of that when it's comment and us just sitting here. So what we'd like to do, we're going to try for next meeting, is that, and also one of the items has also been that people have said we'd really like to comment on items before they're voted on. And so that's a very fair point. But not everything under state law requires a public hearing. And on every single item, we can't open it up for a public, these meetings be 20 hours long. And so we do want to hear from the public though. And if there's something that has been noticed on an agenda, you would really like to have your voice heard, we always are open to meetings. We take phone calls. I think every one of the 200,000 residents has my cell number because they all text me all the time, as they do my fellow commissioners. But sometimes that doesn't work out, and so we'd like to have you have the opportunity to comment before the meeting as well, before votes are taken. So we will extend public comment period. We're still having public comment period, but we're not going to require any sign up. There won't be any 2-minute time limit or anything like we've had in the past. We will be in this room a half hour before. It'll be on the schedule. It'll be still public comment, but public comment will be moved before the meetings. We can hear you before we take votes, and we will sit here and come and lobby us and talk, and then we can have a dialogue and we can come up with solutions, and we can get feedback before we take votes in the business meeting of the business portion of the meeting. So we'll be moving public comment to the front and have it much more of a dialogue and hopefully be more productive.
And so, Mr. Chairman, it's my understanding it'll be more of a town hall style, and we'll come off the dais, because this is so awkward, to have a conversation from up here. And so it's my understanding that we'll stand down there, you know, it could be possible that, you know, we could have 2 or 3 kind of conversations at one time, or other words, it's gonna be an opportunity to really have dialogue. Because it is awkward when people ask questions and we really just can't respond because of the awkward format that we have, so.
And similarly, we will have, if there's something on the agenda that we know is, people are gonna be more interested in, we'll try and have our staff come as well, so that some of the people that might be implementing those policies or something will be here as well. So we're trying to be as open and accessible as humanly possible on this. So that will take place on October 17th. We'll make that change on October 17th in that meeting. So with that, we are going to close the commission meeting, and we will now open the Board of Canvassers. We had an election recently, a primary election, and so our first and only item of the agenda is the consideration of canvass of the September 5th, 2023 primary election. Ryan Sullivan, our clerk auditor. Have you been busy at all recently, Ryan? How's been the vacation, hammocks, hanging out?
It's coming up though. Well, good afternoon. Today's the day of our canvass. I just wanted to, I guess, summarize some of the things that have happened this election, my first go around. But we took possession, as you know, of a sorting machine, as well as that has the signature verification portion built into it. It was nice this year because we could break down and sort the envelopes down to the precinct level, and it made it so that we could do some audits at the precinct level. The reason that's so important is the machines that tabulate the ballots, they report at the precinct level. So prior to this machine, I wouldn't say it was impossible, but it wasn't feasible to do any sort of auditing or checking to make sure that the machine was tabulating correctly. So it's nice to have this machine. It's come with some growing pains. I think we've got it dialed in now for our general election. I'm excited about that, getting our processes down. Another thing that was new that happened this year that, again, probably wasn't feasible to do previous to this is we extended an invitation to different municipalities that they could come. I mean, they've always had the ability to come and inspect ballots for a municipal election. No one's really taken us up on that offer before, as far as I know. But we did have some that came in and participated. Some of the public came in as well to watch. I just wanted to give a report of that. There were 7 precincts between all the municipalities, and I also agreed, I guess you would call it a campaign promise, that I would, double check that these machines were tabulating correctly. So we did some precincts as well this morning, but
You're talking about your hand audit?
Yeah, so we did 7 total between the municipalities and what we randomly selected for our audit. And yeah, we had the physical ballots with the reports from the tabulation machines, and we went through every single one of them, one by one, read the races, and in total there was almost 1,900 ballots, which represents about 5% of our total ballot count. So to me, that's a lot. And I know others would want more, and some thought I was crazy for doing that many. But I'm really happy to report that it was a 100% match on every single precinct, ballot for ballot. However, there was, in all full transparency, there was an issue with one ballot, and it was an adjudication issue that we've taken new steps to prevent that from ever happening again. It was corrected, and in fact, we went through every ballot that could have had that issue to review that manually. So luckily, there was no other ballots that had that issue, but I'm still calling it 100%. I'm really pleased with that.
Well, because Ryan, in that one adjudicated ballot, you really were talking about, and you've changed your policy. Your policy was actually this way before. But
It
there
was, and
But it was,
with the new machine and the new
Yeah.
processes,
but actually, it was a human error. The
Yes.
machine was correct in its call out. It was just that the human looked at the image that the machine had taken rather than the ballot. And once the ballot was reviewed by human eyes again, then you recognized very quickly what the question was. But the machine had kicked it out for human review.
that's a good point, that our tabulating machine recognized there was an issue with it and kicked it out for the humans to review. And it was up on a screen. When it's viewed on a screen, the new process is we've got to have those adjudicated ballots, the paper ballot and what's displaying on the screen from the tabulation, and we're golden, so. Just to go over some of the statistics, I know these summary reports have been sent to you for your review, but just as a matter of record, I wanted to go over some of the summary reports. The registered voters total was 104,432. And as you know, this was a special race that got combined with the congressional race, CD2, we've coined it. That got combined with some of the municipalities that had primaries. Not all municipalities had a primary race, so if you were not a registered Republican and did not have a municipal race in your city, you would not have received a ballot.
So like Washington City did not have a primary, right?
Correct.
So if you were a registered Democrat in Washington City, you didn't get a ballot.
Right. So the registered Republican voters, there were 66,864. And then this nonpartisan category is everyone else that's not a registered Republican that would have voted in a municipality race, and that's 37,568. The total ballots cast on the total election was 38,167. The ballots cast for Republicans was 31,048. And the nonpartisan was 7,119. And there were 30 blank ballots, believe it or not, that were cast. That is
Does that mean they just didn't vote for anybody?
Right. Yep. It's kind of sad when you see that. I think what's even sadder to me is when someone overvotes and then the whole ballot doesn't count for anything.
We had a lot of choices on some of these
Yeah.
races.
The total voter turnout was 36.55%, and the total voter turnout for the Republicans was 46.43. And the last stat I'll give here is the voter turnout for nonpartisan was 18.95%. Do you have any questions about the stats or?
No, I just think, Ryan, having watched just between being new in your position and the machine that you're working with, the sorter, making sure that we got this down to a precinct level, I don't think the public can fully appreciate the number of nights that I left here at, 6 or 7, and Ryan's car was the only car left in the garage. And weekends and nights that he has worked and trying to make sure that he met everybody's question on the election. I think that people need to know that. They need to know how hard you worked, how hard your staff worked. And we're talking Saturdays and Sundays, folks. We're talking just a ton of hours into this process to make sure that every I was dotted and every T was crossed. And I just, I can't imagine anybody else doing as good a job as you did, Ryan, so just thank you.
Thank you.
Hold on, Ryan. I get to piggyback on that just because I have photo proof. Since I had to go run some errands on Saturday, and is that your truck?
It looks to be. from
It's your
there.
truck, it's in your parking spot. And it was there at 11 a.m. and it was there at 5:30 on Saturday. So I'm sorry for your wife and daughters who don't get to see dad as much, but thank you for putting in the time to do things right.
Well, you got me on my last thing I had written down here, and that's the thing. I'm telling you, I would see Kim get up here and get a little emotional, and I know why. It's, you think of all the people and the hours they put into this thing, and it's a lot of late nights and a lot of hours put in, and so many departments chip in. I mean, we had attorneys out emptying ballot boxes for us. We have different department heads volunteering their people to come rip tabs off of envelopes. And I don't want to start naming people because I'll forget, because there's just so many people that help. We couldn't do it without everyone, so thanks.
Repeatedly, we would be here. We got back from a conference of commissioners, and I got back here late in the evening, and your whole team was downstairs. So I walked in and said, noticed all your cars. I walked in, and you were working away, what was that, 8 o'clock that night, at least? And that was not election night. That was long after. You were still.
Right.
Yeah, we have a great team. So I guess I've never done this before, so I guess my request is that you would certify this official canvas of our election.
Okay.
So thank you.
And I can say, Ryan, too, that people were very anxious, not only candidates themselves, but the citizens, to know results. And you persevered with some extra work you had to do, because 2 candidates in a particular election didn't turn in their required financials on time, and so they were disqualified. But that added extra work to you. But I can promise you that you did everything possible to get as many ballots as you had out that first night, which gave candidates and the public a certain level of direction and results. There was some jockeying for positions in the primary, where there are 6 candidates for a particular opening, and that occurred as you cured ballots and made phone calls and asked people to come in who didn't sign or whatever. But the point I want to make is that there are certain limitations to doing 30+ thousands of ballots all in one night, and then you being able to record some results so that people could go to bed by midnight. So thank you for doing that.
What was the, because you did allow municipal, the city, several cities came in and took a lot of time hand auditing themselves and going through the ballots. What was their reaction?
Everyone was super pleased when they were done. One of them was last minute that came this morning, and I don't know, my goal is always just to make sure this stuff is accurate, and I think that was proven today and over the last week. And I hope it goes a long way with some of the public that was there, that they can spread the word to the community. There's just a lot of noise out there, and rightfully so. I mean, you read things that mainly are occurring, I think, outside of Utah. But we really, like, Utah's really got a great system, and things are solid here, and they're solid here in Washington County. I'm really happy with what happened, and I hope the public can be, and the different municipalities, with how it turned out.
Well, for me alone, at least, thank you for being willing to do the hand audit. Thank you for allowing the cities to come in and do their work, so that as they have to certify their own elections for their municipalities, that you were accommodating and tried to do everything that you can to guarantee accurate results, and I'm glad to hear that they matched 100%. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Well, very good. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the canvass of September 5th, 2023 primary election has been presented by our clerk auditor, Ryan Sullivan.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. With that, we'll close the meeting, and note that meetings are rebroadcast daily on TDS cable channels 22 and 108 at 10, 2, and 5:30, and also available on demand at youtube.com/community education channel. Thank you very much.
Stop, Adam.